how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live, here with you on December 7th, 2022. I'm here with my co-host, Nolan. How goes it, Nolan?
Chris, I love life. So glad that the grid is stabilized where you are. So glad that you finally have energy again and life is easier. You don't have to worry as much.
You say that now, but it actually went off for 15 minutes this morning, so it was a little bit like, oh no, here we go again, but
You
luckily
got
it came back on.
PTSD. You
Yeah,
got some
exactly,
PTSD.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of relief from energy issues, of course, Bitcoin Magazine Pro has covered the whole FTX contagion, the lead up to it better than anyone, but their actual specialty is covering the mining industry. And today, Dylan LeClaire giving everyone an update on what's going on and huge relief out there. He writes, the largest downwards BTC mining difficulty adjustment since the summer of 2021 occurred last night. 7.2%. And he says much needed relief for Bitcoin miners still in the game. Of course, he's been covering all of the pressures on the entire sector, and you can get a lot more of that if you subscribe to Bitcoin Magazine Pro. Now, just in terms of the energy sector, that's all the kind of stuff we're going to be covering at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami, May 18th to 20th. It's an energy show. We're an energy show now, right? People used to think it was all about just privacy, that's how it started, and separation of money and state. Of course, those are the building blocks. But now more than ever, we're going to be an energy show. I'm going to try and bring you the best content because you, our audience, are the most energy literate audience in the world. And we're going to bring you the best energy related content on earth. So come, it's the end of Bitcoin winter, May 18th. It's going to be the best. It's going to be the best.
Yeah, and Nolan, I definitely want to expand on that. Definitely, it started as a privacy thing, or outside the state. Then it kind of went into Wall Street and the finance. And you're saying we're just throwing that away. They'll still be there. Obviously, there'll be great conversations about the finance of Bitcoin and all that. But it's the energy revolution is the next frontier. It's going to be interesting to see what comes after that. Like, I mean, energy is so robust and expansive. We can go nuclear, small nuclear and modular reactors. I think many Bitcoiners would love that, and it makes Bitcoin mining super profitable that way, or at least very economically viable.
Energy is everything, and the energy is going to be at our show, and we're going to be talking about energy. Vitalik took all the energy out of Ethereum, right? So we got a whole new audience, right? There's no energy there anymore. We're going to get all that energy. So come, it'll be great.
Definitely. Well, the feud between Binance and FTX continues. So Binance CEO CZ basically says Sam Bankman-Fried is one of the greatest fraudsters in our history. I think that's a pretty stark contrast. In the beginning, he was very much like, hey, like we're selling the FTT token, and he was very cordial because I think he was winning. I'm not saying he's losing right now. Obviously, he's still around, and SBF is having his trial in front of his peers, it appears right now in mainstream media and all the book campaigns that he has. But basically, it's very interesting because Binance, it takes one to know one. Basically, they have their own token in BNB token. They sell other shitcoins or other coins on their account. Obviously, they try and market to the Bitcoin community to buy other things on their platform. But I don't know. What's your two sats on this, Nolan? I'd love to hear.
Well, I mean, as far as I see, the test for me is really if the astrology of their names line up. Because, you had Bernie Madoff. He made off. He made off with the money. And then you had the bank man. I don't know. CZ doesn't do it. He doesn't have like a name that rhymes with a major crime. What I think is hilarious is that Ghislaine, and we still don't know what went on that road and who the people were. But I guess now Sam Bankman-Fried has hired Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer. So the story is getting better. I mean, we thought it was just going to be about Caroline and him, but now Caroline's back in America. And does she have immunity because she's going to have a plea deal? And it looks like her lawyers are really the Clinton lawyers, and this is getting really fun. It's going to get really fun, right? And we call it Elon's take on Occam's razor, which is that the simulation, tends not to the most likely, but in this case, the most entertaining. So I look forward to more entertainment out of this story. I'm sick of seeing SBF's face. I'm glad that new characters are entering the story, and that it's getting so spicy. But this is great. CZ coming with a little guest appearance, but I don't think he's going to have a starring role here. I think Bankman-Fried is going to continue to have all kinds of fun stories around him. So there you go. Ghislaine Maxwell. Maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, and I think this is going to take years to play out. Obviously, they're not going to go very quickly. It's going to well, maybe it doesn't play out at all. Nolan,
We'll
that's
see. We'll
but to
see.
your point, like I like that the Caroline storyline's getting in, but it
Yeah.
wasn't just the two of them. Like I'd love to see the cast of characters of the roommates, like
The
definitely.
orgy thing
Yeah.
from
Oh
the
yeah.
orgy.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen enough. I don't need to see more. I'm
I don't need
okay
to
on,
see that visually, but maybe bringing them into the fold in terms of the
maybe,
court
maybe.
deprecations if they go there.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna get spicy. I mean, like I said, it's the most entertaining, and that's where I disagree with you. Like when people say it's gonna take a long time, well, that's boring. I think the story is gonna have more entertainment value. Like I said, we got Ghislaine's lawyers and the Clinton lawyers now. Whew, fun, fun. Battle of the
Yeah.
narratives.
Well, it seems the fiat system is in a pressure cooker. What do I mean by that, Nolan? If you want to expand on it.
Well, it looks like the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing the old you can't take out your money, big time capital controls. This after they tried to ban Bitcoin just a few years ago and have already observed a measurable, demonstrable use in Bitcoin. There's a premium now to pay in this market because of the capital controls and the risks associated with it. So right away we see, because of this, they're sort of trying to further this cashless policy, and what this is all about is when you basically make the options illegal, you're forcing people down the CBDC road. Now, I'm going to tie it into an American story real quick, and this is the FedNow payment system. So this was just happened a few days ago. So it's not a CBDC, but it shows the problems of monopolies. And George Selgin pointed it out. George Selgin, of course, a hard money kind of guy, very interested in probably the leading proponent of private banking in America as far as public figures, academics go. Slightly interested in Bitcoin, but always has been since the very early days of Bitcoin. So he is not ignorant to Bitcoin, has always known of its existence, and is not just, he doesn't talk about it all the time, not because he didn't hear about it. He's got his, I guess, other reasons. Anyway, he points out what's going on with this network. They basically have now outcompeted the private sector. They've taken off all transaction costs because they're subsidized by their system. So they're already going to compete with the payment networks that everyone has been using, ACH and the others, that the private, which are terrible, right? The ACH clearinghouse for payments in America is a very terrible system. Everyone in the world complains about it. It's one of the worst. So that there is innovation is one thing. That all of a sudden now, out of nowhere, just went on like Black Friday sale. That's how the Fed Reserve competes against their competitors here. And it's not so different than this case in Nigeria. So instead of banning the competition in America, they've just decided to outprice them. And the results should be very similar. So it's not just about choice. It won't, we say on this show, as we cover the CBDCs and stuff, we cover it in the sense that it's probably going to be tied to UBI, so the people who want it are going to get some benefit out of it, I guess. But in general, we have noticed that people won't choose it, and we see it all around the world. Of course, that's not going to stop the push. There's different ways to herd the sheep, if you will, and one of them is to block options. Or in America, just outcompete the banks. I'm not too worried about the banks. They'll find a way to compete with them, right? In this story of the Fed, the victims are the banks, right? The consumer, if you will, is the supposed winner because they're getting cheaper fees. But I don't really care if the banks and the Fed Reserve want to fight amongst a bit of that market share. We got better stuff. And what does that better stuff look like? We got
Yeah,
news on
so
it. We got
yeah.
news.
So to contrast the bad things in Nigeria, or the things that do not seem as privacy focused or better for the individual, Strike is going global. What do I mean by that? You can now send payments from mobile money accounts in Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. So Nigeria, while they have the CBDC clampdown and less of a privacy cash relationship, you can use Strike and their platform in order to send money to different users. So that's very cool. I will caveat and say it is KYC. So I guess if the Nigerian government wants to go after Strike, they could. It remains to be seen how that works because Strike is very much a company based in the US, but it could be an ask that they try and pressure Jack to do something that he doesn't want to do. But for the time being, it seems that this is a way to get around it. It's like Venmo and it's going global. I know many Europeans would love to have Strike Beat come to Europe. It seems they're expanding. Obviously, they were in the U.S., El Salvador, and now these three new countries of Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. But they're slowly expanding, which is awesome. Leveraging the Bitcoin Lightning Network in order to send payments. You can send Bitcoin very easily, fast, and cheaply. You can also send U.S. dollars or any fiat currency very easily across the Lightning payment rails, which very, very exciting stuff. And like I said, Nigeria, aside from having only 0.5% adoption of their CBDC, their peer-to-peer adoption of Bitcoin is probably the highest of anywhere in the world. That's at least the last I know and checked. But very exciting for them and looking forward to that. Anything you want to add to this, Nolan?
Yeah, I've been bullish on Nigeria. We're always going to bring you stories about Nigeria on this show. We're going to be talking about Nigeria and that whole part of the world at Bitcoin 2023, May 18th to 20th. There's all kinds of content that's going to be related, especially to the central bank failures in Africa and what an advantage. Of course, we've all heard the story that the local people on the continent can actually leapfrog because they don't have those folks in the way. Unfortunately, we have all kinds of incumbent folks in the way. And this next story is Apple, the Apple Pay system. And we heard all that news last week where they were never really going to take the Twitter out of the App Store, and you misunderstood, and it wasn't that. But we also heard about the app updates that benefited the Chinese Communist Party. So Apple not having a great PR a couple of weeks. It looks like you could actually see the bottom of that company had they persisted in the stuff they were talking about. As Elon Musk threatened to launch his own phone, it became clear that there's an appetite out there to get out of this app world and all of this crap. And now, with Apple also dealing with supply chain issues, of course, they're having to delay production out of the Foxconn factories in China because of the zero COVID policy. And as I understand, missed payments for some reason or another. It wasn't just COVID that sparked it. In the Foxconn case, the wider country, of course, it was the apartment burning. But in the case of Apple now, it looks like they're going to try and move chip production onshore to America to erase some of these vulnerabilities. So at least they're becoming a bit more of a company that doesn't support, or perhaps is not so easy to blackmail if you're the Chinese Communist Party. So I'd say any fewer connections to that part of the world, or that country in particular, and that political party in particular, it's nothing to do with the part of the world, is welcome news. And hopefully they find a nice home near El Salvador. That would be great, right? Rebuild a lot of that stuff in parts of the world where the demographics are really favorable, where there's a lot of young people looking for work. And we can only hope that a lot of American re-onshoring of manufacturing takes advantage of the great demographics of the continent, in particular Central America and Mexico.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I will caveat and say that these are very complex, these chips, like these chip manufacturing. I've heard from people that do construction, stuff like that, just the complexity of the nature of the plants. Normally it takes, they say 10 years to build. So this is not going to be something that's done overnight.
Yeah, I went to a super secure one in Israel, probably in Intel's super secure chip factory in Israel in like 2008. And at the time it was already an issue. And they said at the time they would only build like the lower, easily repeatable, have been in the market for 10 years already chips in China. And the reason they chose Israel was not because of local engineers. They brought all those people in because Israel itself was so hard to get out of because of the police state, that they were able to police any potential theft from the Intel plant there. And yeah, it was a super controlled environment. We had to wear like magnetic static suits or something like that. It was a whole ordeal.
Yeah, and I definitely think when we build them up in the United States, me being an engineer, this is not to downplay engineering in America. I just don't think we have the brain power here because we haven't been chip manufacturing. I know they're building a lot of these plants. China, for all of their faults, they do have millions of engineers a year go into chip manufacturing because it is kind of like the chip hub, and mainly Taiwan go into chip manufacturing. So maybe onshoring some of the engineering talent there, and here we start studying up how to do complex chip manufacturing. To your point, it's very complex. You have to wear the suits. You have to be anti-static, anti-shock. No dust can get in there. That can really mess up the process. And
there was many rooms before we actually saw anything that we had to go through, I remember.
Yeah, it probably even, and I hate saying this, but it's probably even more secure or more clean than even American food industry, which it says, oh, we want our chips cleaner than the food that we ingest, which is the irony of it all. So chips, not those chips, but the computer chips.
Yeah.
with all that, things are getting crazy in the markets. Obviously, we've talked macro. Liquidity is running dry. What do I mean by this? Blockstream is raising a fresh fundraise at a lower valuation than their most recent financing. Their most recent financing was in 2021 at a valuation of 3.2 billion. Obviously, this is in the time when Bitcoin was peaking, and we were still in the midst of the bull market. Right now, their valuation is about $1 billion, or about a 68% reduction in their valuation. This is kind of in line with the Bitcoin price. Obviously, we've seen Bitcoin price hampered down near 70% or a little bit more than 70%. So it makes sense when you're a Bitcoin only business, you're holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet, you are, go in the highs and lows of it. They're raising money to, I believe, expand or keep their operations running. I don't think this is like an FTX, like they're going to go bankrupt tomorrow. But hey, not your keys, not your coins. I don't see what goes on behind Blockstream's doors. Obviously, I like a lot of the products they offer, and definitely a very interesting company to come out of there. With that said, maybe the bear market's ending. We've talked about this a couple times. I know things look bad. They keep raising interest rates, but Senator Cynthia Lummis, or the senator out of Wyoming, says if you're worried about Profligate government spending, buckle up. It's going to be a wild couple of weeks. So what that reads to me as someone who sits on the Senate Finance Committee as maybe the money printer starts sooner rather than later, or at least we're going to start devaluing our dollars even faster relative to the amount of government spending it's coming out. Those are Cynthia Lummis's words, not mine, but it's very interesting when someone that sits on the Senate Finance Committee is telling you that, hey, spending is going to get a lot worse for the federal government. That's probably not going to be good for people that are holding U.S. dollars. I know the U.S. dollar has been making a bid, or the I forget the name of it. The DXY has been making a bid, meaning that dollars are getting more expensive or more valuable compared to other fiat currencies. But in the coming weeks, I'm assuming in the new year, we'll find out what that means. I think right now, Congress and Senate are kind of in a recession till middle of January or end of January, basically. But
here's the thing on it, though. So, and this is what we are really covering. This is the story you're going to hear at our show. It's really the fight between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, because they're not on the same page here, right? We saw it with the stimmy checks for gas in California. You're going to continue to see this. You're going to continue to see policy objectives, because as Alan Farrington called it, it was subsidized narcissism. You're not in this system going to stop getting folks who want to be a hero, want to solve this problem, want to solve that problem. All the politicians are there to solve all the world's problems. So of course they're going to keep writing these checks. So we're dealing with the Federal Reserve that has a mandate that's either going to have to be, which they've already basically become since COVID, subordinate to fiscal policy. So monetary policy becoming subordinate to fiscal policy. That was not the case pre-2020. It used to be the reality, so-called reality, of fiat monetary policy would trump fiscal responsibility and fiscal policy, and therefore central banks or central governments didn't want to run deficits, and there was a wisdom to not running them because they would run afoul of the central banker. So you can take the Ray Dalio scenario that you're mentioning here, that fiscal policy will lead to a devaluation of the dollar, but there continues to be the corollary, which is the dollar milkshake idea, which is that everyone else in the world is going to be printing anyway. It will all just get absorbed into the $1 as all other fiat collapses, as the relative meaning towards their measuring stick, the US dollar, falls apart. So we're covering both of those stories. You're going to hear more about it. Speaking of melding policy dollars with fiscal policy, we've got a story here from the CBDCs in India where they start talking about, no, we're going to have a CBDC, but it'll also be private, and you'll also have anonymity if you use it, kind of, sort of. Well, that really comes into this whole interaction. We mentioned earlier about the Nigerian case and about FedNow subsidizing competition against the private sector, in this case banks, so who cares? But the idea that you can incentivize people to use CBDCs through instruments like UBI, I think is going to be too difficult for these politicians to ever resist. So the prediction I have, and what you're going to hear on this show, and the way we're going to cover it a lot, and the way we're going to cover it in Miami at Bitcoin 2023, is along those lines, that there's never going to be an end to the reasons and incentives that people are going to throw into the bucket of UBI, CBDCs to entice a user base. And this is another one of those cases where, yeah, sure, on a drawing board, a big country like India can say, yeah, no, no, no. But eventually someone's going to come with their hand out, and there's going to be a connection there. So sign up, get your free whatever. Get your free CBDC, But you got to leave your name. You got to leave your name, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it anonymously. They don't like anonymous in the end, right? Who else doesn't like anonymous people?
Well, it seems Jordan Peterson is one of the people that does not like anonymous people either. So about 12 hours ago, he put out a poll on Twitter and he said, quote, by failing to separate the anonymous cowardly troll demons from real people in the comment section, YouTube and other social media platforms are enabling sadistic, Machiavellian psychopaths and narcissists. Well, maybe we are psychopaths. We have been labeled that before, Nolan, and I think that's something that the Bitcoin community has embraced.
So toxic.
It was a Twitter poll, and there was about 78K votes on it at the time that we took this down. 53% were disagreeing with this take. So 47, it was only agree or disagree. 47% were agreeing with Jordan Peterson's take. Another tweet that Peterson sent out right around the same time, I'm only anonymous, and he was saying in quotes, I'm only anonymous so I can continue to do good. Excuse my skepticism, sunshine. It's not like you're that good. And he said ... So obviously he thinks the anonymous people are mainly trolls. They're cowardly. They're hiding behind their NIMs. But I want to contrast that on the Bitcoin side of things. Satoshi was anonymous, and he did, I believe, to be some of the most important work when it comes to privacy and freedom in space for humanity, probably ever, or as of up until this moment in time, at least. And, it seems sad to see that Jordan Peterson, I get there's bad and good in everything, and he says that these anonymous people are trolling him. They're hurtful towards him, which may be true. But at the same time, we do not want to subjugate these social media platforms to get even more power and require, he was advocating for KYC in the platforms. You have to have a government ID or something that to use social media in general. But you're giving more power to the state and also these social media platforms, and they already work hand in hand. We do not want to give them or forfeit them even more power. Nolan, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's even why, this is one of those stories in Bitcoin where mimetically we've already figured we got to kill our heroes, right? There's no room for idolatry. There's no room for forgiving people because they get, they're right about everything almost, but just about this one little thing, right? That doesn't mean we have to hate on the guy and we have to make him cry again. And, we don't want him crying anymore. We don't want Jordan Peterson crying. We're okay with him just shutting the fuck up about some stuff that is none of his fucking business. And, but that's why we don't worry about this, or we've at least mentally prepared to tear down any person. Even in the next story, Elon Musk, right? Yeah. Elon Musk, right now we're talking about the Twitter files. And of course, no one could deny that Elon Musk has had a major role in this turning point, and let's call it World War III or whatever the heck is going on. He's allowed all kinds of fun debate to happen on Twitter. It's real fun again. We got shots fired everywhere. It's lots of potential to tip the whole apple cart up and have hyper-Bitcoinization in a number of years now as a result of all the energy that's on Twitter these days. But now we find out that this guy, James Baker, who, remember the Russia collusion and Mueller, it's all boring. It's all like document management stuff, like Hillary's emails, like who went and had the document when. And I don't remember any of it, except the parts where the FBI was signing fake search warrants and tapping phones of a presidential election and all that kind of stuff. And that really happened. And this was the guy behind it. So where does he go after he does all the FISA warrants and becomes the big object of everyone's criticism back then? Well, he shows up at Twitter as their general counsel. And he's involved in all of that stuff there. So it looks more and more like infiltration. But how the hell did it last while Elon Musk was even there? He was editing emails that Elon was giving to Matt Taibbi just this weekend. The reason why, and we've hyped up Barry Weiss's launch or release of her batch of Twitter files, but it hasn't come yet because they discovered this guy was in the middle of it all. Now, I think Elon does get the benefit of the doubt. He didn't know this guy was there, but for God's sakes, Mike Cernovich warned him 2 years ago that that person was there, or warned him, at the beginning of the buying process, this person was there. So he couldn't have been totally unaware. How this person lasted the rounds of layoffs that went on and was still involved in a delicate process is absolutely beyond me. So while I'm a fan of Elon and enjoy the show, right, and think he's doing great stuff, and I love the rockets that land, and that's really cool. But if there's any involvement here, and this Baker guy is involved, well, sorry, you're done too, buddy. Not in the way he was worried about being physically attacked yesterday or 2 days ago when he was in spaces on Twitter. I just mean in reputation and in our ability to trust him, of course. This is always a non-violent show, of course. Right now it just looks like what I said. This guy was involved, this James Baker. Elon Musk had nothing to do with it, and he was involved in the relaying of the files to Matt Taibbi and was caught trying to do some stuff with Barry Weiss, who helped put an end to it. That's the story that I understand. Now, Jack getting involved and saying, well, let's just be done with this because obviously there was infiltration. You don't know how deep the infiltration goes. Let the world see. So that's where we're at now, right? And luckily, Bitcoiners can handle any outcome because mentally we're prepared for Jordan Peterson's to just go away and for Elon Musk's to go away. If they can't keep it up, bye. And now I don't want to see that. I love both of those guys and hope they stay around and come to their senses. And I hope in the case of Elon that he's innocent. And I hope in the case of Jordan Peterson, he makes an anon friend and realizes they're not so bad. But we'll find out, right? We'll find out.
Yeah, and you can definitely find out more about these talks in Miami, May 18th through the 20th. You can go to b.tc/conference and use the code BMLive to get 10% off your tickets. Tickets will be going up in price going into the new year, so get them before the new year as a New Year's resolution to meet up with some great people and have some great conversations about energy, about Bitcoin as a financial tool for freedom, and Bitcoin expanding into Africa. Anything else you want to add there, Nolan, before we wrap up?
No, we got Quick P with a comment here. There might be unsuspected reasons for Elon to get him working a little longer. Movie stuff. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the whole thing looks like a movie now, right? So as we mentioned, it's Elon's Occam razor, right? Elon's version of Occam's razor, which is the simulation will tend towards the most entertaining. So we can look forward to all the SBF revelations with the Ghislaine lawyer. There's more cool stuff coming, guys. Come every day here at noon. You'll get the news and notes.
Yep, and that's a wrap. Sorry, I was just responding to the comments real quick. But guys, thanks for sticking with us. We will catch you tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace out.